bombing of Darwin happened in our own backyard, and yet no one talks about it. People tend to think, and I did originally, that there was just a couple of bombs dropped in Darwin, and that was it.
I've got a fair knowledge of what happened in Gallipoli, what happened on D-Day, the invasion, but it wasn't until a couple of years ago I went to Darwin and actually found out the history of the bombing of Darwin that made me realise that there's just not enough information around to get people familiar with it.
84 years ago, Darwin was bombed by the Japanese Imperial Forces, and these forces were the ones that bombed Pearl Harbor.
Our shores were attacked, and it's very important. People that defended the shores, they be remembered.
My father is Wilbert Thomas Hudson, but he's known as Darky to all the veterans, particularly those veterans in Merrylands where my father was born, but also veterans that served or had served, or their families associated with the veterans that have served in Darwin. While they were in the showers, they heard planes coming over, and someone said, "They can't be Allied planes. We don't have that many planes." Through all that drama of running out of the showers, trying to keep the towel around you, but seriously realising that we're in serious trouble here and we're being attacked by the enemy. The tower was academic. If it fell down, it fell down. And so to this day, he's been known as a naked gunner for that reason.
Merrylands RSL does a wonderful job of holding this event. This is the second year they've held it. The bombing of Darwin seems almost like a part of our forgotten history. It's not talked about very much, so bringing days like these to the forefront in RSL clubs are key to reminding us sacrifices made by current and former serving defence personnel.
If we don't recognise or don't follow our military history, then what happens after that? No one will keep it going. And that's the important part, is keeping that military history going so people understand where we come from and what we've done. That's the important part. It's not glorifying war. It provides an understanding by listening to a historian who's done the research, who's been there, as well as meeting some of the people who've got that messaging and that information. That's gold. And without that, they don't get to understand what's happened.
Regardless of what conflict they fought in from the First World War to the present day, the conditions that they served this country under, the battles that they fought, the dangers that they faced, we should never forget what the veterans have done, and we should never stop to thank them. Without them, I mean, it's true to say that the Australia that we live in today would be a totally different place.
Lest we forget. Lest we forget.
There's nothing bigger than paying the ultimate sacrifice, and that is your life, to try and defend the country that you come from.
Today, we come together to honour and remember those who lost their lives, to reflect on the courage shown, and to acknowledge the lasting significance of this event in Australia's story.
The first bombs fell on Darwin that day at 2 minutes to 10. And the first target, even though the harbour and the oil storage tanks were the main targets. The first target that was hit was the USS Peary. The first raids over Darwin lasted less than 40 minutes. But in that 40 minutes, that formation of aircraft, 188, made up of Zero fighters and Val and Dinah dive bombers, wrought almost total destruction upon Darwin. Of the 49 ships that were recorded to be in the harbour, 9 were sunk and 2 were sunk outside the harbour. Planes had left, Darwin was on fire, 65 to 70% of the town had been either destroyed or badly damaged. Those raids on that day were the first of over 70 that struck Darwin with sustained attacks. The Japanese dropped more bombs on Darwin on the 19th of February 1942 than they did at Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor, for all of the tragedy, for all of the death and all of the loss, was one raid on one day. Darwin suffered raids for 20 months.
It was fantastic. I learned a lot. I think that's really important, that we do endeavour to listen and learn.
Today's a great example of how Merrylands and other clubs are connected to their histories, because they do a number of commemorative events, local engagement events. So whether or not you've got schools, whether or not you've got community groups, veterans, sub-branches, it's such a wonderful way for clubs who are essentially the hub of their community to remind the community about their core purpose, which is remembering veterans and current serving personnel.
The thing that surprised me the most was the amount of time that Darwin was being bombed for. I really thought it was over a lot shorter span.
Our young people like to talk about all the time about having freedom to say what they want to say, and without what we've learned today, they wouldn't be able to do all of that.
Wilbert Darky Hudson, the naked gunner, not some words I thought I'd be saying at this sort of event. He was having a shower with his boots on and his tin hat, and he heard the ruckus outside, ran outside with his gun and took down the plane, I believe. So just an unbelievable story, a national hero, someone that I would love to see being mentioned in school so that everyone grows up knowing that people that are young were doing these sort of things. We're here on our phones, we're here living luxurious lives compared to them, but people did really hard, sacrificial things to get Australia where it is today, and that meant a lot to me. I learned a lot from that.
I was actually not aware of very much of the detail that was explained today, so it was great for me to hear. I also didn't realise it was such a significant impact on Australia, and it was actually a bigger deal than Pearl Harbor, so that for me was very enlightening.
What we are and what we're trying to do is to educate people and keep the spirit and the legend of our history going in the future, because when I'm gone, who's going to carry that forward?
Lest we forget.